bang, just like that. And this guy came up out of the wheelchair so fast and so quick, the decatheter came out of his tube. And he started to chase me. He literally looked at me and he jumped out like this, and I pushed the psychiatrist in front of me and said, he made me do it. And he grabbed the psychiatrist, threw him down on the linoleum, and began to beat his head on the floor. And I said, that's right, get that aggression out. Well, I heard that therapists say that before, and I never had any use for it, but at that moment it seemed like the appropriate thing. All of a sudden, this guy looked up, and the psychiatrist jumped up and began to run. The guy who had been catatonic for over 6 years, his muscles were totally atrophied, but boy, could he run. Man, because this psychiatrist took off, and he went down this corridor, and this catatonic went after him, and this IV was like going behind him, and finally it pulled out of his arm, and the IV thing went crashing down, and the guy's running down the hallway, and the psychiatrist ran this way, and they kind of went by and passed again, you know, by again, and I kind of watched them like this, and I looked over at the next catatonic in the bed. And as I walked over, he looked at me and said, "Stay the fuck away from me." Proving that they were not nearly as chronic as they thought they were. But you see, this is not in any of the psychiatric manuals. It does not say whack the catatonic on the toe with a ball-peen hammer. Now, over the years when I saw clients, the thing that always amazed me the most was that they would give me these gigantic folders called a case history. Now, some of the clients I got had been in therapy for up to 25 years. At the time, I wasn't even 25 years old. They would give me things that were this thick. They were volumes of tests they had done, personality inventories. They gave me this one person who had had 16 electric shock treatments, megavitamin therapy. They'd been through analysis. They'd been through Gestalt therapy. They had been through everything you could possibly imagine. And they were still, quote unquote, paranoid. Well, when I looked at all the stuff they did to them, it would make me paranoid. To tell you the truth, they brought this person and they said, this person's a paranoid schizophrenic. And I looked at him and I said, what do you want? And they went, well, nothing. I said, then why are you here? And I looked at the psychiatrist and I said, what do you want? Get out. And the psychiatrist went, me? And I said, yes, get out. And he went out. And I slammed the door and locked it. Put the deadbolt on, and I turned around and I looked at him and I said, we're alone now. And he went, oh, shit. And I went, that's right. And I said, now, what's worth being afraid of? And he said, I don't know. And I said, it says you're afraid all the time. And he went, I am. And I said, are you afraid now? He went, yes. And I said, good. How do you know where do you feel the fear? And he said, well, I said, I'm just a trembling all over. And I said, well, where does it start, though? I said, you weren't trembling when you first came in. And he said, well, I guess I was just not thinking. And I thought, now, there's the answer. If he wasn't thinking, he wouldn't be afraid. So I said, what do you do to scare yourself? What kinds of things do you think about? And then I started mentioning things that you could think about to be afraid. I said, what if that psychiatrist works for the CIA? What if they think you're a spy and they're slowly trying to poison you? So everything you eat has actually got poison in it. It's making you sick. Because I've eaten in mental hospitals, and it's probably true. So I brought him in. We went out the other door, because the psychiatrist didn't know there were two doors in the room. We left him out in the front, because I had my office on the side of my house. And at the time, I'd say it was about, 30 degrees outside, just below freezing. And he was standing outside like this, waiting for me to let him in. And we went around and went inside the house and went in the kitchen, where we had a big window where we could watch him outside, and he was hopping on one foot and hopping on the other foot, freezing his tail off. And we sat there, and I said, let me make you some real food. So I made him a tuna fish sandwich, and we sat down, and I said, look, I said, you've got to get out of the mental hospital. I said, and there's only one way to do it. And he said, what? I said, you've got to become sane. Otherwise, they're going to get you. Nothing like a good plot against a paranoid schizophrenic. And I said, you know the way you scare yourself is you think about scary things. And he went, yeah. And I said, now, what I want you to do is to think that things, I said, you have to lie to yourself, though. And he went, oh, okay. I said, I can do that. And I said, good. I said, I want you to just imagine that everything's okay, that everything is as if it's what it appears to be. I said, out there is a freezing psychiatrist. I want you to look at it and go, freezing psychiatrist. And he went, okay. And I said, I want you to look at somebody, and even though they look at you weird, and I went like this, and I said, you go, somebody is looking at me weird. That's it. Don't have to say anything. Don't say it in a suspicious tone of voice. Say it in a voice inside your head that sounds matter of fact. And he went, voice inside my head? I don't have voices inside my head. I said, you liar, you do too. I can hear them. I don't know why that works, but it always does. They always go, oh, okay. And I go, now, I said, because if you don't use a voice to reassure you, you're going to act scared. Then they're going to give you more drugs. They're going to keep you in the hospital. Your whole life you'll spend in prison. I said, do you want that? Think about spending every day of the rest of your life in prison, being poisoned by the CIA. And he looked at me and he goes, that sounds ridiculous. And I said, yeah, I know, but it's true anyway. Now, what happened is by getting this guy to change the way he talked to himself and what he made pictures of, he didn't feel so afraid. So then what I did is I said, now it's time for us to scare the psychiatrist. And he said, what? And I said, look, I said, you've been afraid for 30 years. I said, don't you think it's time we did a little payback? I said, so you can't just give up being afraid. You need to scare other people. That way you don't have to have the fear inside you. And he said, what? And I said, think about it. My Jewish grandmother taught me all about this. When you want to feel guilty, you do it in other people. See, she did it all the time. I would be walking out of the house, and she'd go, that's okay. You boys go out. Go and look for girls. Go and have fun. I'll sit here home alone by myself. Pretty soon, it didn't seem like so much fun to go out. See, to me, the thing is to begin to understand that if you can get people to do different things, they're going to feel differently. Now, the first thing I want to do is to start to take a little inventory. So what I want to do is, what time is it here? Do we have coffee breaks or anything? What's the story, Ronnie? Well, I don't drink coffee, so we'd be here all fucking day. That's not going to do any good. You know, it's like, you know, I'm not going to start drinking coffee. So I don't, like, at 10:30 suddenly feel like I want coffee. I used to drink coffee, but I drank it by the gallon. You know, so I really had to give it up after a while. I used to just have an IV that shot coffee into my arms, so I didn't have to stop typing. Somebody once asked me, they go, "How did you write so many books so quickly?" And I said, "Coffee, lots of coffee." Stayed up, and I even dedicated one of my books to coffee. I did. I dedicated it to Folgers Coffee, which is a brand of coffee. And it's kind of funny, though, because Milton thought that there was deep, hidden inner meaning. You know, because I dedicated it to Mazda, which was the kind of car I drove. I just bought a new Mazda with a rotary engine in it that goes, Made me think up all these things. I'd drive in it and it would go, and every time you shift it would go, and I'd get all these ideas would flood into my mind. So I dedicated it to Mazda and to Folgers Coffee. And Milton wrote me this letter that said, he said, the dedication to the book, what does it really mean? And I wrote him back and said, you know, I dedicated the book to my car and to coffee, the two things that kept my life moving. And he wrote me back and he said, don't lie to me, you know, I'm a nonlinear thinker. He said, some people would accept this, but I want to know the real meaning. So I was at a loss of what to do. So I started looking. So I looked up Mazda in the dictionary, and I found out Mazda is the Japanese god of light. I didn't know that. So I wrote him back and I said, actually, Mazda is the car of light, and coffee is actually a stimulant. So it's light and action. For some reason, Milton was quite satisfied by this answer. He wrote back a letter saying, I understand. Actually, you know, he didn't write a letter. He sent a telegram. Kind of an unusual telegram. It's pouring rain at my house, and I lived way up in the mountains at that time. And lightning was going off, and the rain was pouring down. Suddenly, I heard this knock on my door, and I opened the door, and there was this guy outside, like this. And I said, can I help you? And he just walked right past me in the house and sat down and went like this. And I said, hello? And he went, Richard, this is Milton. And I went, yes? And he went, I want to know what the dedication to the book means. And I said, this is fucking weird. Milton lived in Arizona. I live in California. And so I said to this guy, I said, go back and tell Milton it doesn't mean nothing. So this guy got up and walked out of the house. And about 3 weeks later, he shows up on my door again. Now, I later found out this guy's a psychiatrist. And Milton is using him as a telegram. But this went back and forth about 6 or 7 times. And I kept like sending messages back. I kind of got into it after a while. I thought, cool. And I said, and I do things like I go, here's a Mounds bar. Bring this to Milton. And tell him to figure it out. And then he'd come back later and he'd go, what exactly is a Mounds candy bar? And so I'd send him back with another Almond Joy candy bar. Go, here. Take the one with the 2 nuts in it. Figure that one out, Milton. So anyway, I tell you what we'll do. We'll do it this way. What I want you to do is to take a coffee break. But while you're taking your coffee break, what I want you to do is to find yourself a partner in here. And what I want you to do is to have them think of any irrational fears that they have, where you stop yourself. Whether it's from telling your kids that you love them, telling your wife you love them, being able to negotiate. My wife negotiates everywhere she goes. You've never seen anything like it. She goes in the finest, she goes in I. Magnum's, New York City, and negotiates at the perfume counter. And she gets price discounts. It's absolutely amazing. You know, you wouldn't think that you could negotiate, but to her, everything is negotiable. And she does. When she shops, she never stops. She's relentless. Whatever they ask for the price, she'll look at the price and she'll go, how much does this really cost? And they go, well, it says it's $173. And she'll go, yeah. But if I give you $150, are you going to say no? No, you don't want to sell it? And people go, well, I just work here. And she goes, well, who can make this decision? And they'll go and get the manager, and the manager will come and go, is there a problem? She'll go, yes, I only want to pay $150 for this. And that half the time they'll go, okay. And if she can't get the price reduced, she makes them give her something for free. It's unbelievable. I saw her. She bought a string of pearls in Chinatown, and she told the guy, she negotiated the guy down from $3,000 to $200. Now, I figure that's some kind of a record alone. Then she made him take pearls off of every set of the necklaces and put them together so she had just the pearls she wanted. You should have seen the guy had tears streaming down his face. And he kept looking at me going, can you make her stop? And I said, no, I'm sorry. I can't make her do nothing, I said. But I can only tell you there's only one way to get this over with. Just give her her way. That's what I do, and it works every time. So I tell you what, let's take a 10-minute coffee break, and then spend 5 minutes apiece, and just go through. And what I want you to do is to ask the person where their fear starts. Doesn't matter. They don't even have to tell you what they're afraid of. Just find out where it starts in their body, how it moves, and in order for fear to stay, it has to either turn this way, has to turn that way, turn this way, turn that way. Because you can't habituate feelings. As soon as you find out what it is, I want you to pull it out, turn it upside down, pull it in, and start to spin it in the opposite direction. And what you'll discover is that fear turns into primarily curiosity. It may turn into another feeling, but what it won't do is feel the same. Because as soon as you reverse the directions of your feelings, you're learning what I consider to be one of the single most important things, which is that you can arbitrarily feel better than you do. That the reason you have bad feelings, the reason your clients have bad feelings, is because they learn to do it that way. But in no way does that mean that you have to live your whole life that way. Hey, Ed, how you doing? Welcome to Germany. This is another one, just keeps tagging along. That's what you guys decided to leave England, see what was outside of England. This is it. Yeah, isn't it? It's a beautiful lake out there. There's a ducks quacking and eating things, and I'll tell you something. Everything here's cheaper than London too. I'll tell you, London is so expensive. Just blows my mind. You go out to dinner and it's like you have to get an investment banker, you know. It just, I went to a clothing store the other day. I was running out of underwear. And I went in and they wanted the equivalent of like $100 for a pair of underwear. I was just blown out. That's, you know, I mean, that's like 200 marks for a pair of underwear. I got here, I went to the store and they, you know, for 100 marks, I bought my wife a coat. I got 12 pairs of underwear, socks, t-shirts, and a taxi cab ride back and forth. And I had money left over. But everything in London, you know, is a little upscale. They always go, but these aren't just any underwear. These have a name. I don't want some guy's name on my underwear. Thank you. Especially if his name is Hilfinger, you know. I just don't think that's a good name to have on your underwear. So when you have your underwear, it goes, Hilfinger. No, thank you. I want my underwear blank, thank you. It's, I just don't like the idea of some guy's name on my butt either. You know, it's, I don't care who he is. You know, and since I've met most of these designers, I went to this one time. I had a client who is a very famous designer, and he brought me to an opening, and I primarily went because my wife wanted to, but I got news for you. Most of these guys are gay. And you know, when you talk about having a gay guy's name on your underwear, this worries me somewhat. You know, let alone on everything else you wear. You know, and then there are people out, this is really, I don't know if it's so much so true here, but in the U.S., there's still these people that are fanatically upset about the fact that there are gay people on the planet, like they haven't always been here, you know. I mean, and they go to great lengths in the U.S. to like go out and beat up gay guys, like that's hard to do or something. And most of them are devout Christians in the U.S. that, you know, they forgot to read the book. I'm sorry. That part about thou shalt not beat up gay guys, it's right in the book. But we even had I don't know if you guys see him, but there's a guy named Pat Robertson, who is worth $800 million. And he's a televangelist. He owns the Christian Broadcast Network in the United States. He even ran for president, although no one voted for him because he's a lunatic. He came to San Francisco, rented the football stadium, filled it full of Christians from across the United States to pray for San Francisco because there's so many gay people there. Because they said it was the new Sodom and Gomorrah. And they televised this. And then I thought, what a hinky place to be. A football stadium full of people who want the rest of the world to change so that they can feel good, And I saw this on TV, and Pat Robertson got up there and said the following. He said, I know right now in San Francisco, there are people engaged in all kinds of unholy acts. And I kept wanting to go, Pat, if you stop making the pictures, you won't feel so bad. Or left out, depending upon how you look at it. That, to me, he's just like making too many pictures of what's going on for him to possibly feel good. He kept going, and I know right now they're doing it. I know they're doing horrible things. I can see it. I know what they're doing. And I'm going, Pat, stop making the pictures. You won't have to feel bad. Well, the same thing is true. You can start with the feelings. You can start with the voices. You can start with the sounds and the pictures. It doesn't matter where you start, but ultimately, till you redesign your own insides and begin to do things in a different way. Think about what you used to worry about, ma'am. Ma'am, I said. No, this woman sitting in front of you. It just over-responded there for a second. And when I say, hey, ma'am, it's not a good time to be talking. We were just discussing that. Keep your personal life to yourself here. So, ma'am, when you were think about the thing you thought about before that made you feel bad, that you're worried about. What happens when you think about it now?
I
like your answer.
You like that. I hear your voice and your jokes. So I have a new voice inside you. No, actually, no. It's gone.
You're great. Oh. I got the best job in the world, don't I? Now, of course, this knows, what's happening now. We're only suppressing the symptom, which to me sounds like a really good idea. I don't know why psychiatrists say it like that. That's a bad thing. That, they said to me, when I did things, because I had pretty good results with people, I have to admit. I think a lot of it was just luck and ignorance combined. That since I didn't believe, I figured since everything they did didn't work, that I wouldn't do those things. Because if they didn't work, the more we did them, the more they wouldn't work. So I tried different things. I tried scaring paranoid schizophrenics to the point where they thought it was silly. Because you see, to me, the definition of a schizophrenic was somebody who was not in touch with reality. being a physicist, what I decided to do is to change reality because it's so malleable. So if they, if Jesus came and talked to them at night, that's why one guy who saw 60-foot Jesus would walk across the lawns of the hospital and come and talk to him at night. And of course, this guy decided, therefore, he was a holy person. He took the sheet off of his bed, cut a hole in the top of it, put it over him like a robe, and sat there and espoused all of these things. And he said, so that the nurse would come in the morning and he would go, Jesus told me you're a fat slob. Right? No secondary gain there, huh? Now, what I did with this guy is I just got a nice big laser. I got a hologram from Edmund Scientific of Jesus. It's a hologram of a statue. And I projected it up into a smoke machine outside the lawn so that, we had a nice 60-foot Jesus, and I put a couple of amps out in the trees. And then we said to this guy, we went to Martin. All right, and we put video cameras inside this guy's room so that we could see what was going on, so that we could have fun. And, and a microphone so I could hear what he said. So we blasted out of the thing. And see, if you're going to do religious figures too, by the way, you need reverb. So they have that nice kind of echoing quality. So we went, Martin, Martin, Martin. And he looked out the window, and suddenly this gigantic thing came across, We had the smoke machine down at the bottom of the building, and big hologram projected in there. And he looks out the window, and he goes, damn, you look different. Schizophrenic, but not totally crazy. And I said to him, because it was actually me on the microphone, it wasn't really Jesus. I just don't want anyone to get lost. And I said, I've come for the last time. See, that presupposition kind of sets you up for good things, don't you think? And see, and when I said that to him, he looked at me and he went, why? And I said, because you have to listen to the following. You blew it. And he went, what? I said, you told people that I came, so I can't come anymore. And he went, I'm sorry. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, I want you to leave here. I want you to have a good life. And I've left for you a very important book. I want you to study it thoroughly. And I want you to remember everything in it and use the wisdom in this book to help people all over the planet. And he said, I already have a Bible. And I said, it's not the Bible. And suddenly a bright light opened up and illuminated across the room, and there it was, a great big book. And he walked over, and it said on the outside of it, life insurance. It was the manual about how to be a salesman for a life insurance company that I had worked for, so I got him a job. He still works there, and he's one of the top salesmen. He's quite dedicated. One might almost say he has a religious fervor about it. Now, here's the funny part. That night, there was religious conversions all over the mental hospital. Staff, clients. Because Richard forgot to tell anyone he was going to do this. So if you are going to do these things, it's a good idea to mention it to the staff. There were black women on their knees just crying to Jesus all over this mental hospital. Because when we were done and I was leaving, there were people praying everywhere. And I thought, gee, cricket, what's going on here? And there were people like doing this in Suddenly, and the chapel, I'd never seen anybody in the chapel. The place was almost filled. But you see, to me, the only real difference is that I believe that his mental state was not one that made it so he had to be put in jail. To me, this is the worst. There are two kinds of jail. There's the kind where they lock you up and feed you bad food. It's kind of like being on an airplane, but it lasts longer. The second kind of being in jail is where you spend your life doing things you don't want to. Being afraid of something you could have fun at. Worrying about things rather than doing things. The amount of time that human beings spend engaged in unnecessary activities, if you stop about how much of an entire day you spend not feeling exquisite. I mean, you know, if you wake up in the morning, you should be filled and thrilled with all of the sights and sounds. Look at this beautiful place we're in. You know, even the food was pretty good here, and most of the places I teach, the food sucks. But, you know, I had breakfast this morning. The food was good. Art on the walls. Did you guys see the art as you came in here? Isn't it fabulous? I mean, here you are, alive. That's one of the best parts about it. And do you know how many people on the face of the earth are busy thinking about what's going to happen after they're dead? Excuse me, you know, you get to find that out. It doesn't seem like a good thing to worry about. It's the one thing we're all going to get the answer to in time. So I don't really think that people should be killing each other over it ahead of time, you know, because as it turns out, you know, we may all be wrong. Who knows? Me, I kind of like the idea of reincarnation, so I'm going to believe in that. I will say on my tombstone, I'll be back. Ain't getting rid of me that easy. Of course, there's people that feel that way already. So I tell you what, let's take a break, take 10 minutes, get some coffee, walk around, find yourself a partner, and I simply want you to do is to find out where fear starts, how it moves through the body, and how it stays there. And they don't have to tell you what they're afraid of, just have them think of something where they have what they consider to be an unrealistic fear. Fear of jumping off of high places, good fear to have. You know, fear of messing with your wife at certain times of the month, good thing to have. Other than that, most fears are not founded on anything that's realistic. You know, if you're afraid to try new things, if you're afraid to do certain things, you know, give yourself the chance. A lot of people are afraid to write, to play music, to do art, you know, to try and cook new things. The world is an adventure, and if all that's getting in your way is a few ideas, it's time to turn the ideas around. People will always say to you, it's an idiom in English, they go, you can turn that around. Well, now we're going to do it literally, because once you find out how their feelings are moving, I want you to just simply have them reverse it arbitrarily. Pull it out, turn it upside down, pull it back in, and move it in the opposite direction, and find out how they feel different. Have them keep spinning it, because the more they spin it, suddenly it will generalize into a whole body sensation from a part body sensation, and from that moment forward, it will become difficult to have the same problem. Right? Good. Okay, I'll see you guys in a few minutes. So, excuse me. So how'd you guys do? Did you try this? Yes? And what happens when you spin the feeling backwards? You feel differently, right? Surprise, surprise. If you don't make the same feeling, you don't feel the same way. This is my answer to modern psychiatry, that you can spend 5 years free associating, and then somebody will tell you why you're fucked up. Now, that's supposed to somehow or other, the idea to insight therapies was that if you understood why you were screwed up, that you wouldn't be screwed up anymore. Now, it's a good idea. However, it's been tried, and it just plain doesn't work. It's just that simple that people would go, aha, you know, I really wanted to sleep with my mother, but now I'm still screwed up. I'm still depressed. I'm, you know, only now I have something really to be depressed about. To me, that the idea of these things. Years ago, I can remember it vividly. A psychiatrist told me, because I worked with this guy, and this guy had a psychiatric problem where when they're around a bathroom, they don't feel like they can't go to the bathroom. But if there's no bathroom there, then they feel like they have to urinate. And it's actually in the DSM-2 and the DSM-3. It's some standard psychiatric disorder. And a psychiatrist brought me this guy, and when he told me this, I thought, well, gee, that's terribly inconvenient. If you only feel like you have to urinate when there's no toilet, I mean, that, you know, and he told me that means that he can never be that far away from a bathroom. But yet, if a bathroom's around, he's totally constipated, and he feels like he can't be. So, I mean, it seemed to me like he just had these things backwards. Okay, I realize that's a very simplistic view. The psychiatrist gave me a case history on this guy. It was this thick. I remember looking through it because it seemed to me like it was a really simple explanation. The guy can't pee when he sees a toilet. The guy feels like he has to pee when he doesn't see one. So I took this guy and I just knocked him into a deep trance. And I said, okay, I said, now, I said, here you are in a trance. I set up finger signals, and I said, is your unconscious listening? And I got a yes finger signal, and I said, now, what I want to do is I want to straighten this out because you have this all screwed up. I said, now, I said, when I reach over and I touch you on the right knee, I want you to feel like you have to urinate beyond belief. I said, when I touch you on the left knee, then I want you to feel like you couldn't go to the bathroom no matter whatever happened. You'll feel like you could never go to the bathroom again for the rest of your life. And I said, does your unconscious understand? I got a yes finger signal. I said, okay, I'm going to count to 3, and I'm going to bring you out of this trance. And I went 1, 2, 3, and the guy looked at me like this, and I said, okay. I said, now. And I went over to the side of my office, and I opened the door, and I said, you see this? This is a toilet. And the guy went, yeah, and I touched him on the right knee, and he went, oh, Jesus, I have to pee. And I touched him again. I went like this, and he went, oh, man, oh. And he got up, and he went and he peed in the toilet. And then I sat him down, right, and I closed the bathroom door, and I hit the other knee. And he went, and I said, now do you have to pee? He said, I just went. And I said, okay. I said, think about being in the car driving home. And I said, you remember on the way up here you felt like you had to pee? I said, think about it now. And he goes, well, I don't think I really did. And I said, now, think about being out halfway, because I lived in the woods in the middle of nowhere at the time. And I said, now, think about driving through the woods. You know, it's dark outside. There are bears like pacing next to the car, so you can't get out of it. And I said, then I tapped him on the knee like this, and I said, how do you feel? He goes, well, I feel fine. So I said, okay, I'm going to now count. I looked at him, and I said, I'm going to count now from 3 to 1. And when I do, I want you to drop back into a trance. And I went 3, 2, 1. And at that moment, the psychiatrist went. So I couldn't pass it up. Right. The other guy went into a trance, and I told him, I said, look, in the future, I said, when you see toilets and when you know they're around and you feel like you have to pee, just go. And I said, and when there's no toilets around, and then I tapped him on the other knee. Now, I realize this is not sophisticated like modern psychiatry. I didn't do any analysis. All I did was treat the symptom. But then all the problem he had was the symptom. He didn't have any other problems other than his symptom. Now, the psychiatrist, I told him, I said, look, when you come out of trance, I said, I want you to realize that things are not the same as they were. If there are problems, if the client and the problem disappears, it has to disappear to somewhere. And I punched him in the chest with my finger and sat him up straight, and I said, are you listening? And he went, oh yeah, yes, I'm listening. And I said, good. And I closed the bathroom door. And the minute I closed the bathroom door, the psychiatrist said, can I use your bathroom? And I said, it's gone. And he said, what? I said, look, if a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, is there really a forest? And he said, I don't understand. I said, when I closed the door, the bathroom fell off into the ravine. There's no bathroom there. And he goes, oh, geez, I really have to pee. And then I opened the door, and he goes, I don't feel like I have to go to the bathroom anymore. And I said, oh, okay. And I said to the guy, I showed him the toilet. I said, do you feel like you have to pee? And he said, well. And I went, tick, 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 and he got up and he went and peed. And I said, now, I said, it seems to me that this guy has no problem anymore. And the psychiatrist said, oh, yes. He said, that's well and fine. He said, but you only treated the symptom. And I said, what else do I need to treat? And he said to me, he said, if you suppress the symptom, it has to come out somewhere else. And I said, I know. Just trying to pace his model of the world. Of course, 3 hours later, he was begging me to undo it, and I said, look, if I undo it in you, it's going to be unleashed in some poor helpless person. Because if I suppress it, won't it come out somewhere else? And he said, no, you don't understand. I meant if you suppressed it in a person, it had to come out somewhere else in that person. And I said, I did. I made it so it comes out in the toilet where it's supposed to. And he said, no, it has to come out somewhere psychological. Well, I don't happen to believe that those are the rules of the game. I think through whatever mishigas went on in this guy's life, that he learned to have this screwed up. And the more therapy he went through, the worse it got, because they kept focusing on all the embarrassing situations that he'd been in. I asked this guy, I said, what in the world have you done in therapy for 7 years? And he said, well, he said, I've tried to deal with all the embarrassing situations I ended up in. Because this guy, of course, eventually had to pee and would end up peeing when there was no toilet around, which is not a good time, unless you live way out in the country. I mean, but this guy didn't live in the country. He lived in downtown San Francisco. And he'd be walking down the street, and suddenly he'd pee his pants, and he'd get embarrassed, and then he'd go to his psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist would go and bring up all the embarrassing things that happened to him in his childhood. Now, to me, this is only going to compound the difficulty. The more you think about what's wrong with you and the more you focus on it, the more you're going to see. If a bad thing happened to you once and it caused a problem, thinking about it over and over again is only going to reinforce that problem. To me, that you really need to be able to understand that human beings are a lot simpler than all of that. It's not about interpreting. It's not about looking for deep hidden inner meaning. Most of the time, clients will tell you exactly what you need to know. When they made those Marshall University tapes that are in Magic in Action, have any of you read that book? guys don't read much either. Huh? But those of you that have, sir, if you remember, the first case that was in there was a woman who suffered from something called anticipatory loss. And this woman came in, and they told me I only had 30 minutes with each client, because that's how long the tape was. And because after all, you wouldn't want to do anything helpful after the tape had stopped. And certainly wouldn't want to do anything helpful before they began the tape. These people are totally loony. But anyway, 30 minutes was plenty. Because when she came in, she just totally gave it away. Because I said to her, I'd never met the woman before. She came in and I said, look, I said, what are you doing here? And she said to me, look, I have a problem I need to get more distance from. Now, what could be easier? I mean, she comes right out and tells you that she's got pictures that are too close. So what do? I told her to push them away. Now, that's not going to take 30 minutes, so I had to fumble around for a while before I did it. And, it was like the minute she told me, I thought, oh, yeah, too bad we don't have a 5-minute tape. But who's going to buy a 5-minute videotape, It's like, buy a tape of Richard Bandler, it'll cost you $3 and it's only 5 minutes long. See, I had the same problem. I went one time in front of the American Psychiatric Association. And they had a thing called Frontiers of Psychology. And in order to attend this conference, you had to either be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a psychoanalyst. And they actually let the psychoanalysts sit at round tables up front, and then the psychiatrists got to sit at square tables behind them, and then the psychologists had to sit in the back rows. I mean, talk about being stuck up. 650 of these people. It was like the mothball fleet. And I was going to demonstrate how you work with phobias, because I've done lots and lots of phobias. And they gave me somebody who had a phobia. And since it was a large audience, I didn't want them to freak out. So I told the person to think of a time where they felt really confident, reassured, where nothing freaked them out about anything, and where they felt good. I mean, it could be anything, working in their wood shop, wherever in their life they felt confidence, and the person started to think about it, and I reached down and anchored it. I just touched them in a certain way, and then I waited and touched them that way, and I could see the same feelings come over them. And then I said, they brought you up here because you have a phobia, right? And the guy said, yeah. And I said, now go ahead and think about your phobia. And I touched him at the same time, and as he thought about his phobia, and rather than reassuring him, it disappeared. And I don't even understand it. Most of the time, that's not enough with a good phobia. But in his case, it just happened to be. It wasn't a very good phobia, I guess. Because the guy went like this, he went, it's gone. And there were all these psychoanalysts out there with their notebooks, and they all looked up and they went, huh? And I said, oh, okay. And I said, now, think of another time in the future where you know that you'd be afraid. And he went, I can't be afraid. And this one guy raised his hand in the audience and said, could you do that again? I think I missed something. And the truth is, in fact, he did. If it was that easy to work with this guy, how had he been in therapy for 14, 15 years? I mean, to me, if it was that simple, I accidentally fixed him. I didn't even mean to. I wanted to drag this out for a few minutes. I had to go all the way till lunch with the demonstration. You know, and 5 minutes later, this guy's going, I can't be afraid. I'm just not afraid anymore. Thank you very much. And he walks away. And all these people are going, but we didn't even find out what he was afraid of. But you see, it doesn't matter what you're afraid of. It doesn't matter what you worry about. It's not the content that's the important part. The important part for people like us that are in the professions we're in is that we believe in human beings enough to believe that it's going to be easy. Since I believed it was going to be easy with the anuretic, with the person that had the peeing problem, that to me, as soon as we straightened it out so that he started making toilets an anchor to go to the bathroom, which is a good thing to have them as. I mean, you know, because if you look at a toilet and it becomes an anchor for not being able to go to the bathroom, you're going to end up with trouble. It's just that simple. And to me, this has nothing to do with your childhood. It has nothing to do with toilet training. It has nothing to do with anything other than you're just not peeing in the toilet. I mean, it's just that simple. But if we try to make things so that they're more complex, we will succeed. And the more complex you make things, the harder it is to do. Now, it's not that psychiatrists have bad intentions. It's not that, because, I mean, after all, I've had thousands and thousands of them in seminars. And once they learn how to make a phobia go away, it's irresistible. There's nothing that breeds success like success. I know that's why many of you are here. You've tried things and they work. And once you try things and they work, it becomes something that becomes a habit. The trouble with choices is that most people don't have enough of them. It doesn't become a choice until you have two responses. As soon as you have the ability to become afraid or not, which one are you going to pick? Which is? To be free. Very well said, because that's what I consider my work to be about. My work is not about making people more psychologically sound. Lord knows I'm the looniest one of all. I scare psychotics to death. You know, it's because to me, if they can do it, I think I should be able to. I'll never forget, there was a guy hallucinating snakes. And actually, I have to tell you, the psychiatrist told me this guy was a hebephrenic. And I thought that was like some kind of a Jewish thing, you know. And I found out it's not. It's somebody who's hallucinated floridly. And I love that word, floridly. Isn't that a great way to describe hallucinating? And when he told me this guy was hallucinated floridly, I said, wow, that sounds like fun. And the psychiatrist went, oh, no, he goes, it terrifies him. So I went in and I sat down with this guy, and he seemed to actually pretty lucid for the most part, except every once in a while he would kind of go off. And I asked him, I said, look, I said, the psychiatrist said that you hallucinate a lot. And he said, yes. He said, but it doesn't seem like it. And I said, well, I said, what kind of things do you hallucinate? And he said, mostly snakes. And I said, snakes? And he said, yeah, snakes. He said, suddenly I'll be sitting here and I'll look down and I'll see snakes all around me. And I thought, ooh. And I said, have you ever considered hallucinating something else? And he went, what? And I said, well, I said, think about it. If you can hallucinate snakes, you should be able to hallucinate anything you want. And he said, well, you mean you get to choose? And I said, didn't anybody tell you that? And he went, no. And I said, good. I said, well, think about it this way. What I want you to do is to hallucinate a beautiful naked woman right here. And he went like this. He went. He says, I don't know. And I said, sit back, relax, take a deep breath. I said, just start at the toes. See the toenails with the toe polish? I said, work your way up until you have a whole woman. And he went, yeah. He goes, I got it. And I said, now, what I want you to do is to hallucinate next to her a big snake. And he went, Okay. And I said, now, which one would you rather look at? And he said, well, I'd rather look at the woman. And I said, good. Next time you see snakes, turn them into pretty women. And he looked at me and he said, well, what if I can't? And I said, well, if you think that you can't, that only means that you can not. It doesn't mean that you are unable to. It just means that your choice is, because it cannot is a conjunction of can and not. It means you are able to not do it. But it doesn't mean that you're not unable to do it. I said, clearly, if you stop to think about what it is that you're not doing when you could do it, then the more you could do it, the more you're not doing it, the more it isn't really the case that you shouldn't be able to do what it is that you want to do in spite of the fact that you're not doing it yet. Clearly. Because if their conscious mind is going to fuck around with them, I figure I can do that better than they can. And the more they try to stop themselves from preventing the fact that they don't realize what it is that I'm not doing, the more I am doing things that they can realize how to do the things that they want to do. And in spite of the fact it shouldn't make sense, it does anyway. Because, you see, human beings don't process negation. If I say don't think of blue, of course you think of blue. So if I say don't think about naked women, then of course they're going to. If I say don't think about naked guys, if I say don't think about sales in stores, for some reason that works better with women. If I want women's attention, I say the word shoes. You know, I can do that with my wife. If she's not listening to me, I go, and then shoes, and then blah, 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 blah. She'll go, what? You know, but if I try to talk about money, anything else, she's not interested. But if I say shoes, you know, she makes Imelda Marcos look like she didn't know what a shoe was. It's like we travel around, you know, all over the world, because that's pretty much what I do. I travel and I lecture. And while I'm lecturing, my wife is out there slithering around somewhere right now looking at shoes and purses, because you can't have a purse to match the shoes, you know. I mean, these are rules of life, and you have to learn these things. Some people think it's unreasonable. I think it's very reasonable, because if you're going to buy shoes, you have to have a purse that matches. And then, of course, you need to get a dress to go along with it. I understand these things. But the same thing is true that I realize that if people engage in any behavior, you see, it's not different to spin fear than it is to spin curiosity. It's the same activity. And if you can do one, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you're sticking the wrong things in. I got really frustrated one time. I flew to Vancouver, and I hadn't really traveled much when I was in my early 20s. I flew to Vancouver, and when I got off the plane, I was extremely thirsty, and I walked up to a Coke machine, and I stuck coins in it, and it wouldn't give me a Coke. And I got really mad, and I began banging on the machines, and it spit the coins back out, and I put them back in, banged on the machine, and it spit the coins back out. And I started cussing at the machine, and this policeman walked up to me, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm yelling at the machine because it won't give me a Coke." And he looked down, and he pulled the coins out, and he said, "These are American coins." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "We are in Canada." And I went, "Oops." But you see, if you put the wrong thing in the machine, you get the wrong thing out. I didn't want my coins back, and he kept giving me the coins. I wanted a Coke. And so if you want to be able to be a good public speaker and to enjoy it, because I'll tell you something about it, it don't matter what field you're in. Almost every job, if you learn to do public speaking and learn to speak to people without fear, you will make more money than if you don't. The same thing's true about dating, for heaven's sakes. I know lots of guys that are really, really good looking, but they're terrified of women. And I'm not saying that's not justified. I'm just saying it's not useful. That if you don't walk up and exude some kind of a glow, if you walk up and go, most likely you're not going to get a date. There's just something about guys twitching with drool coming out of the corner of their mouth that's not really that attractive. Now, I know that on the surface it sounds simple, but that's because it is. That over the years, I found lots of very difficult ways of doing all these things. I used to have to bring machines and do all this elaborate stuff. But now it's a lot easier. I just put people into a trance and tell them to stop it and give them something else to do which works better. Because to me, the whole rule of thumb about how to make change is to create a void and then fill it with something worthwhile. That if you give people better choices, they'll use them. If I ask you to come up here now, would you be afraid? And you're sure about that? Good. See? See, I always test my work. I try and scare them, I'll wait, they get on the stage, and then I'll shock them. I'll do things like pull out a machine gun. See, now would you be afraid? Answer should be yes. But other than the fact, unless you have an audience of people with turbans and machine guns, probably there's nothing to worry about. Actually, the terrorists don't wear turbans because it's in the terrorist manual. I don't know about you guys, but when they found in the trunk of these guys that blew up the Pan Am building, in the trunk of their car in the airport parking lot, a manual on how to be a terrorist. You wouldn't really think you'd need a manual for that, would you? But it did. It said things like, don't wear your turban, shave your face, appear normal. It should have said act normal. And then they would have just flown somewhere on the plane and left it at that. But apparently they said, if you die for this cause, then you will go to heaven and sit at the side of Allah for eternity. Right? Virgins you will have for eternity. Now, if they thought that through, what does that really mean? That means they're going to go sit next to a deity and have women look at them and go, I'm not ready yet. But do you really love me? Doesn't sound like the best thing to me, somehow or other. Sounds like they didn't think this through thoroughly. And the reason people don't think things through thoroughly is because they don't have a better choice about how to do what they don't want to do. It's not that she worried because she's stupid or because of anything. It's just a bad habit that becomes reinforced in time because we're not taught how to use our mind, our body, our spirit so that we can engage in different activities when we most want to. But anyway, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I want to take a lunch break, okay? And let's take an hour and 45 minutes. Is that enough time to have lunch here? Yeah. I don't know. I didn't see that many places to eat. So. But I wasn't really looking for them. We were looking for shoes. But I can tell you in an hour and 45 minutes, you could buy at least 3 pairs of shoes. Or you can get some lunch and meet me back here. So that will be what time? You don't want to use my watch. I'm still on another time zone. Pardon? 2:50. So meet me back 2:15. Okay. So meet me back here at 2:15. And I'll see you guys later. Thank you.